I hope that people walk away from the movie and they're like disappointed that Kristen Stewart didn't end up with my character, and they like
Right.
riot in the streets about it. For me, acting is a competition and I just want to win.
How did she know? How did she know? I thought I was a crazy asshole for wanting Abby and Riley to be together while I was watching this film, but I was a little bit relieved to find out that everyone felt the same way that I did. That realization and reaction from literally everyone has put me into a spiral in this last week. My brain has been trying to process this, like, what was their intention? So the reason that we're here is I challenged myself to rewrite the story at the beginning and through the middle to justify the end of Abby and Harper being together. I asked myself, are there any changes we can make to the movie where the audience would actually be happy with the ending? I'm just doing this for fun. This is a fun, like, writing exercise for me. Like, I got my creative juices flowing. I felt really inspired by this movie and the spiral that I've gone down. And I haven't seen anyone do a rewrite of the beginning of the movie. I've only seen like alternate endings. I'm gonna talk about some afterthoughts that I've had and stuff that I've seen other people bring up online. Then I'm gonna get to my rewrite. I assume y'all know the premise of Happiest season. If you're watching this, you don't need a regular overview. So I'm just gonna talk about my favorite iconic moments of the film. If you do not know this, the actress who played Jane, who is Mary Holland, also co-wrote the script with Clea Duvall, who is an icon and the director of Happiest season. Also, disclaimer, I am not going to let us hold this movie to a higher standard than we would a dumb straight Christmas movie. I totally know why we're all doing that, because we are. I wouldn't be making this video if I wasn't, because I wouldn't care enough to. So even though it may not be relatable to every single one of us, it will be really cool in the future to see dumb Christmas movies where everyone's out, coming out isn't an issue, and there's just random goofy shit going out that doesn't really have to do with like the queer struggle. There are a lot of people who can relate to this, and I think the story that they're telling, they're doing it in a very powerful way. I'm not condemning this movie. I'm not canceling this movie. I'm gonna watch it for years to see Kristen Stewart and Aubrey Plaza flirting together and to see Kristen Stewart's iconic Christmas fit. Other very cool shit about this movie, every single person in this film is like, I'm such a big fan of. Like, every single person is so cool. They even have Victor Garber and Evan Chambers. I don't know his name, but I rewatched Greek for like the 4th time earlier in the pandemic, and God, I love him. I love the dynamic of Dan Levy's character with Abby and their friendship.
I left a gentleman alone in my apartment, so I'm tracking him to make sure he leaves.
You're tracking him?
Yeah, I track everybody. If the NSA can do it, so can I.
I realized since watching this that I am the Dan Levy friend. I will tell you the honest truth, tell you what you need to do, but you also should not let me house sit for more than like 2 days. I'm just being honest. But I also specifically loved that he wasn't just like a gay best friend trope. I mean, I wouldn't like expect that from this type of movie. I think I've seen like some criticisms of like him being like a weird friend or whatever, but he's so caring and honest. I don't know, basically I liked their friendship. I can tell that it goes both ways and that he's not like a token friend. I think a lot of people are tired of the gay best friend trope. I mentioned K-Stew's Christmas outfit. People are gonna be wearing this to Halloween next year. So many people are gonna be dressed up like that for the holidays this year, and probably for a few years. This is like a multi-year trend that she is setting. And of course, the chemistry between Riley and Abby is unmatched. I will be watching this movie for years just to see them flirting. Okay, going into some analysis, some points that I've seen made on the internet, and just some things that I've been thinking since watching this film. I do want to say that I kept thinking I was an asshole because halfway through I realized we don't know Harper. We don't know their relationship. We've only been given like a few days of their relationship as an example. I can't relate to the whole like being in the closet or whatever, but what I can relate to is tense, weird, difficult family dynamics, and I would hate anyone, especially like my partner, who I'm very serious about, possibly want to marry, I would hate for them to judge me on how I acted around my family for a few days. That thought prompted me to have a lot more empathy for Harper. That's also, I think, why I'm making this video, to see like, can we make Harper a redeemable character? Big conversation that Dan Levy's character has with Abby. He says, like, this isn't about you, this is about her and her family. And obviously Harper has made it about Abby by bringing her there and like lying to her at the beginning. When someone is like trying to come out, it is about them. It's not about wanting to hide the person that they're with. Deciding whether you want to be in a relationship with someone who's closeted is like a very personal, individual choice that needs to be made. His speech made me say,
yes, I'm absolutely being an asshole.
I should not be like judging her for all of this. Us watching a whole film where Harper's just continuing to let Abby down was difficult and super understandable. Makes sense why we're not big Harper fans after watching this film. One really interesting, cool perspective that I respect and want to talk about is Ivananas from TikTok. IDK how to say her name, but that's what I've been saying in my head when I see her videos.
Getting annoyed at the Harper slander and the like Aubrey and Kristen should have ended up together. It's like, that's not the point of the movie. Like, the point is that all three of those women were hurt by the homophobic family. And as much as Harper's behavior was hurtful and could have been avoided, like, let me just assure you that like having to hide from your family so deeply and for them to not even know you enough to guess, it makes you do some crazy fucking shit. And I promise you, it hurt her and confused her more than it did Kristen Stewart.
And I think what she says is so important for all of us to listen to, because it's not something that I've heard a lot of people say, but I think it's super insightful. I totally agree with it. Her very passive and people-pleasing personality type mixed with this family dynamic that's given her so much fear and internalized homophobia, I think creates the perfect storm for all of her terrible behavior, especially towards Abby. Now for the fun part for me is my rewrite. I'm gonna go through kind of like the easy ones first. This is just like a fun creative film nerd exercise for me because I love this shit. I don't want to tweak like the entire story. I just want to make some like smaller changes to the film and see how that would affect our perspective as an audience watching the movie, and if we could get more of like a mixed reaction or a reaction from the audience where a lot of people were happy with Harper and Abby being together at the end. Yeah, the first tweaks that I would make are to a couple characters. I found an interview where Clea said that she had written the mom character differently than what was portrayed in the movie.
She was a really nice character in the script, and then Mary showed up, and we were like, what? Her take on the
Mary
character
really just
was
kind of
like,
inserted her own kind of person.
And every take, I was like, Mary, can you be a little? And she was like, this is how I'm playing the
This is
character.
who
And I
this
was
is.
like, okay.
I think a lot of our reactions to the movie was, wow, this was like emotionally draining all the way through. Like, I've heard a few people say like, oh, this is a fun Christmas movie. I was anxious the entire time. I know other people felt that way too. And I also know there's the whole thing where people say,
I'm an actor, you hired me to be an actor, so let me do my job. I'm gonna play this role the way I want to.
I think for most professions, like I can relate to that. I'm a consultant in my job and I'm like, hey, you paid me to do my job, let me do it. So I guess I respect that, but I also think, again, if our goal is to get people to want Harper and Abby to be together, if she played her role as the nice mother, I also think it would have made the movie more lighthearted instead of just being constantly awkward moments where we are just like a little bit anxious. So if the mother was played as like a nice, welcoming character, she could have been the perfect foil to the father figure. I feel like that's such a basic filmmaking thing, but it really would have helped empathize with Harper a little bit more, because they maybe could have demonstrated some of their crazy shit that gave Harper all the fucking issues and internalized homophobia that she has. The other character I would play a little bit differently is Sloane, Alison Brie's character. She had this like, actually I'm a little bit torn on this. So she had this like very uptight Pennsylvania vibe, similar to her mom. And we know from the story that it was not the favorite, Harper was the favorite, so she is always trying to get her parents' approval. Everything she was doing in her life to please her parents, she pretty much dropped to go make gift baskets and spend time with her family. If I take away everything I've seen in the movie and just think about the dialogue and maybe what the script looked like, I imagine Kourtney Kardashian if she was forced to get a job. I see her being like a little bit granola, definitely big vocal fry, being a little bit more laid back. I keep having new thoughts and like changing my mind and getting mind fucked, because now I've had all these thoughts and I'm like, no, but it does make sense that she's coming back and just like trying to please her parents. The jury is still out. I don't know how I feel. I do think it's like an interesting concept to think of her being played a little bit differently. My second main rewrite is justice for Jane. I would feel weird like not mentioning the fact that Jane's character was did so dirty. I definitely don't think it was on purpose, but the fact that they coded a character with so many autistic traits and then made those autistic traits the butt of the joke throughout the movie made me feel a little bit uncomfy. I'm not autistic, so if anyone who is wants to like correct me, I don't like it when there's like a really like innocent, nice character who's like constantly being like ganged up on or like bullied. I used to love Parks and Rec, but the fact that they always made fun of Jerry, that killed me. I always hated it every single time that they would make a joke about him that just like did not need to be a joke. I absolutely hated it. And that's kind of like the vibes I got from Jane. I don't feel like making fun of a character for literally no reason is funny. I'm glad she had a good ending, but I don't think that she needed to be constantly shit on throughout the movie. My last change is kind of a big one. In the last year, I've been really interested in analyzing the amount of time or space or percentage of a piece of art that people spend on certain topics or whatever, because what you put a lot of focus on versus what you only put like a small amount of time into really matters for the audience. We're looking at them for just such a short period of time with Harper's family, and that takes up the majority of the movie. During all of that time, the audience is seeing Harper for who she is when she reverts back to like family, like Christmas type of shit. That means they only had that very like beginning part to show us how strong Abby and Harper's relationship is before they jump into this dump. And they didn't. They showed them like doing some weird shit and almost arguing, because I thought Harper's character was being, I don't like Christmas, so I kind of related to Abby in that way, and Harper was being really pushy about wanting Abby to like Christmas instead of kind of like respecting her. That's the thing, like if the filmmakers wanted us to be happy with the ending, there's so much they could have done differently so that they can illustrate the difference between who she is as a real person in her own life versus who she is when she goes back and is being triggered by her family. Some of the things they could have done is like mention sentimental trips or items or like traditions that they have together so that we can get to know their relationship. One thing that usually I would consider like lazy or easy or whatever, but for a goofy Christmas movie is totally fine, is just doing like a basic flashback or having her explain to Abby a situation where she was hurt by her parents because of their homophobia, or like some struggle that she's went through or that she's overcome because of her parents, to illustrate how she's been hurt in the past. And there are two reasons why this wouldn't actually be lazy and would extra fit very well in this movie. The first is because as queer people, I think pretty much everyone, I've seen people talk about this on the internet before, we all have experiences when we're kids or before we're out, maybe even before we like know that we're not straight. We have memories of what our family members or friends have said about LGBTQ plus stuff. So like we harbor those. I don't know why it's a thing. It would make sense if Harper's like, yeah, this happened and like I remember, and we would know like, yes, that's a queer thing. I remember that too. The second thing is that they literally did that to Riley's character. So we got to warm up to Riley, get to know Riley. This is a huge reason why we want Abby to be with Riley, is because when they're at the bar, first of all, the chemistry is just off the charts, but also Riley is telling Abby the story of how Harper outed her. That was super awful. So A, it makes us hate Harper even more. Like, I think that's when anyone who was like, wow, I kind of want them together, we were like, yes, they need to be together. So why would they spend their time doing that for Riley instead of Harper, when Harper That's how they're gonna make the ending. And that is my rewrite. And actually, when I said I'm not going to change the end, I specifically meant I want Abby and Harper to end up together. I wasn't referring to the fact that everyone changes their mind overnight and everyone's immediately cool with Harper being gay and it's just like a whole family affair. Everyone has like years of therapy growth in like an hour. I actually love that because that's the type of shit that's in straight Christmas movies. We deserve to have those like crazy, unrealistic, everything's good. We deserve that. So tell me if you would be happy seeing Abby and Harper together. I think my changes could make it a mixed reaction. I tried so hard to find explanations for why they would want an ending where almost everyone hates Abby and Harper together. And my second time watching it, when Abby and Riley are in the bar, like, there's no excuse for that. There's absolutely no excuse for that scene if they weren't setting them up to be together in a sequel. That's my crackest opinion and what I'm really hoping for. That's basically all the video I have. I do want to mention, earlier I talked about weighing like what's good representation and bad representation, and also having people share their experiences. Like, we have creatives who want to share their own experiences, but we also have audiences who want like good representation. And I think that this movie is an example of that based off of some of the feedback and criticism that I've heard from people on the internet. I think there's so many examples of this, especially with queer representation. So I've started doing an outline for a video where I want to kind of analyze like what is good representation. So please like this video and subscribe if you liked this, if you're like interested. But I think some of these moments in media are super interesting to analyze, and I want to hear like other people's thoughts on it too.